Biggie's death shocked the entire rap game, but the story behind the alleged shooter is way crazier. From busting shotguns at his op's mom to allegedly killing one of the greatest rappers of all time, this is the shocking and brutal story of Wardell Poochie Fouse. Most of the street dudes involved with the war between the East and West Coast back in the 90s all grew up together in the same hoods. Suge Knight and Keefe D even played football together when they were kids, but that didn't stop Keefe from allegedly trying to kill Suge the night that Tupac was killed. Poochie was different though. He was born in Kentucky but moved to Compton when he was a teenager. Poochie might not have grown up in the West Coast trenches, but it didn't take him long to adapt to the environment and get active in the streets. Back in 1975, Poochie was only 14 years old, but he was already getting a reputation in the hood. One day he got into it with a dude from the area and started throwing hands. Poochie was only around 5 foot 5 inches as an adult, and at 14, he was even smaller. He ended up losing the fade, but he wasn't gonna let it go that easy. Poochie went home, grabbed a shotgun, and got his stepfather and another dude to slide with him on the guy who beat him up. They drove by the op's mom's house, and that's when Poochie stuck the shotgun out the window and let off a shot into the crib. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but Poochie was always ready for smoke and didn't hesitate to up the strap. He started repping the Looters Park Pyrus, who were clicked up heavy with the mob Pyrus that Suge Knight was affiliated with. Poochie was already terrorizing the streets way before he met Suge Knight, and this next story proves how brutal he really was. Back in 91, a dude named Paris Eugene Reeves and his girlfriend were asleep at their crib when Poochie and his homie Floyd Boyd allegedly broke in and robbed them. This wasn't just a normal break-in though, and what happened next shocked everyone. Poochie and Floyd threatened Paris and his girlfriend at gunpoint, then tied their hands and feet together and taped their mouths shut. That's when they dragged Paris into another room and started beating him. It was already like a situation out of a horror movie, but it was about to get even worse. When Poochie and Floyd were finished beating Paris, they both upped their straps and shot him to death. Then they walked back into the other room and shot his girlfriend in the head. Luckily, she survived. But what makes the whole thing even more brutal is that there were 4 kids in the house when it went down, and they could hear everything. Reggie Wright Jr. eventually became the head of security for Death Row Records, but back in the day, he was actually working as a cop and even arrested Poochie around 94 after he caught him with drugs and a gun. Poochie already had a rep on his name by the time Suge was starting up Death Row Records. Death Row wasn't like any other label in the game though. On the outside, it looked like a successful music company, but all the money and deals were made with brutal violence. Suge allegedly threatened to kill Eazy-E's mom just to get him to release Dr. Dre from his contract with Ruthless Records. And there were all kinds of shocking stories behind how he ran the label. One of the first things Suge allegedly did in the industry was dangle Vanilla Ice over a hotel balcony to get him to sign over the royalties for the track Ice Ice Baby. Then there were 2 rappers who were brothers coming into the Death Row studio and laying down tracks, but they ran up a huge phone bill after taking a bunch of calls in the office. Someone at Death Row told Suge about how much money they were having to pay for the phones, so Suge went down to the studio and found one of the rappers in the middle of a call. He told the dude to get off the line, and when the dude talked back, Suge smashed him up and made his brother and him strip down in front of everyone and started pistol whipping them. Everyone knew that Death Row was making money and liked to keep street dudes around. So one of Poochie's homies linked him up with Suge, and that's when he allegedly became one of Suge's top shooters. According to Detective Greg Kading, back in 95, Suge was having issues with a rapper from the Bounty Hunter Bloods named William Rat Ratcliffe. The Bounty Hunter Bloods are one of the most notorious sets in the area, and their war with the Grape Street Watts Crips is one of the bloodiest beasts in LA history. They were also hired by celebrities for protection, and Rat even worked with Muhammad Ali. In his book about the case, Kading claimed that Rat was trying to pressure Suge into signing him to Death Row. Rat had been asking him about it for months, and when Suge wouldn't give in, he decided to handle it a different way. Rat allegedly rolled up on him with 10 other bounty hunters and cornered Suge in the bathroom, and that's when Suge allegedly gave Poochie the order to take him out. Suge left the spot and called up Poochie to meet him at the Death Row studios. He allegedly told Poochie he wanted Rat to be taken care of, and the very next day, Rat was shot and killed in the middle of the street. After it went down, Suge allegedly talked to someone about Poochie and said, "He doesn't fuck around. That's how I want him to do it." Death Row was known for having a lot of street dudes around, but Poochie was different. Everyone else would show up in the studio to party and chill, but Poochie was like an assassin that only came in when Suge needed him to handle the situation. Danny Boy is an artist who was with Death Row back then, and during an interview he talks about how scary Poochie really was. Danny Boy says that even though Poochie was a small guy, you could just tell he wasn't the guy to mess around with. Poochie wasn't loud and aggressive at all, but Danny Boy says everyone knew he was ice cold. Poochie and him would talk sometimes when they ran into each other at Death Row, but Danny never really felt comfortable around him because he knew how brutal Poochie was. At the same time, Suge and Death Row's war with the East Coast was going to a whole new level. After he called out Diddy at the Source Awards in '95, it split the rap game in half and bodies started dropping on both sides. When Tupac linked up with Death Row, it was a massive win for the label, and he started putting crazy pressure on Diddy, Biggie, and the rest of the East Coast in the booth. Keefy D just got booked for killing Tupac in Las Vegas, and he claims that Diddy put the hit out on them after Pac dropped the track Hit 'Em Up. Tupac's death sparked a huge crime wave in Compton. The city was already deadly, but after he was killed, there were 11 shootings and 3 murders in just the first 10 days. Suge allegedly knew that Keefy D and his Southside Crip homies were the ones who killed Pac and almost took him out too, so he allegedly put a $100K bounty on Keefy's head. Nobody was safe back then, and Keefy told DJ Vlad that he sent a shooter dressed up in a UPS outfit to Suge's office at Death Row. Suge was allegedly gone that day, but if Suge had opened the door that day, he probably would have died before he allegedly told Poochie to kill Biggie. Biggie knew that he had an even bigger target on his back after Pac died, but he still went out to LA to promote his second album that was about to drop. While he was on the radio talking about the record, he told everyone that he even hired a security team to watch his back because of how wild and dangerous the beef was getting. Biggie's last stop was supposed to be the Soul Train Music Awards on March 7th, and in the morning after the awards, the plan was to fly over to London and do some press there. Instead of hopping on the plane though, Biggie stayed in LA and went to an after party at a car museum, and that's the decision that got him killed. Biggie, Diddy, and the rest of the Bad Boy Records crew decided to leave the party around midnight. Diddy and some other Bad Boy affiliates hopped in an SUV, then Biggie and the rest of the crew got in another car right behind them. Even though they were in op territory surrounded by potential killers, nobody in the Bad Boy crew made sure Biggie had a clear way out. When they pulled out of the party, the street was packed, and Biggie's whip had to stop at a red light while Diddy and his people drove off. While Biggie was at the light, a Chevy Impala rolled up and the driver started busting at Biggie's whip. He got hit 4 times in his heart, liver, colon, and lung. The damage was too much for anyone to do anything about, and Biggie was tragically pronounced dead later that night. After Biggie was killed, people immediately started connecting Suge to the hit. Tupac had just been shot 6 months before, and Suge allegedly wanted to kill Biggie as payback for what went down in Las Vegas. But before we get into why Poochie was the shooter, we gotta break down what everyone was saying back then. A dude named Russell Poole was given the case back in the 90s, and he came up with a theory that Suge was working with a dirty cop named David Mack. Poole thought Mack and his homie Amir Muhammad were the ones who actually killed Biggie. Poole claimed that Mack and Suge came up in the same area of Compton and had been tight for years. Then a dude named Psycho Mike told Poole about Mack's friend Amir. At first it looked like Poole was about to solve the case in no time, but then news came out that Psycho Mike had severe mental health issues and couldn't even identify Amir Muhammad. Amir is actually working in real estate and might not have been involved at all, but David Mack was definitely capable of taking out Biggie. He's one of the most crooked cops in LA, and his entire story is wild. A couple years before Biggie was killed, Mack and his partner Rafael Perez were in a crazy situation with a drug dealer, and Mack ended up killing the dude. The city gave Mack an award for heroism, but then everyone found out that Mack and Perez planted a gun on the dealer and were capping about the whole story. Then just a couple months after Biggie died, Mack's girlfriend got a job at the Bank of America, and the two of them were planning to steal $700,000. They probably could have pulled it off, but then Mack's girlfriend flipped on him, and he went down for 14 years in prison. For a long time, most people thought that Mack and Suge were the ones who planned the Biggie hit, but in 2006, another detective named Greg Kading got put on the case and came up with a way different story, and this one includes Suge's main shooter, Poochie. When Big got killed, Suge was already behind bars for putting hands on Orlando Anderson in Vegas the night that Pac got killed. According to Kading, Suge used his girlfriend Teresa Swan to get in touch with Poochie, and that's how he ordered the hit. Swan was terrified to talk to the cops, but when the LAPD and FBI brought her in for questioning back in 2009, she told them everything. While Suge was locked up, she acted like she was his lawyer's assistant. Then the lawyer would leave the room so they could talk in private. The jail isn't allowed to record meetings between suspects and their legal team, so Suge was able to tell her exactly what to do. After Swan started working with the feds, they put a wire on her and had her meet up with Suge, but when she went to see him, Suge didn't say anything they could use against him. Suge allegedly paid Poochie around $13K to kill Biggie, and he did exactly what he was supposed to. Kading wrote a whole book about Pac and Biggie's murders and included what Reggie Wright Jr. told him when they brought him in for questioning. Reggie told him that Poochie wasn't like everyone else at Death Row. He talked about how Poochie only showed up when Suge needed him. Then he dropped a bombshell piece of evidence. According to Reggie, Suge bought Poochie a brand new Chevy Impala for all the work he was doing, which was the exact car used by whoever killed Biggie. Kading thinks he solved the case, but he was never able to prove the theory because Poochie was already dead by the time he started investigating him. Back in 2000, Poochie almost died when his homie's whip got shot up while he was with him. After Death Row fell apart and Suge kept going in and out of prison, Poochie allegedly went back to just running things with the Looters Park crew, and one of their ops tried to take him out. Poochie made it out alive, but then 3 years later, he was riding his motorcycle down the streets when someone pulled up behind him and dumped 10 rounds from an AK right into his back. Nobody was ever booked for it, but 2 writers who covered the case named Tim Brennan and Robert Ladd claimed that a Fruittown Piru named Lil Rod is the one who ordered the hit. Mob James is an OG from the Mob Pirus, and he said everyone already knew that Poochie was a killer before Kading ever mentioned his name.
Was Poochie known as a shooter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a hitter for real, for real.
He told DJ Vlad that nobody was gonna go around saying Poochie did it out loud, but at the end of the day, it was pretty much an open secret. Reggie Wright Jr. also talked to DJ Vlad about it, and he said that he believes Greg Kading was completely right about how it all went down. Most people think Poochie's the one who pulled the trigger on Biggie, but there's one important dude in the case who says that's not what happened. Gene Deal was Diddy's bodyguard back then, and he still claims that Amir Muhammad was the shooter. According to him, a witness saw Amir walking down the street wearing a blue suit with a blue bow tie before Biggie got shot, and people who saw the shooting go down said that the gunman was wearing the same outfit. Deal claims that Amir was affiliated with the Nation of Islam, and that's why nobody really wanted to treat him like a suspect. He also said that a witness described the shooter as a dude who was over 6 feet tall, and Poochie was only 5'5". For a long time, it looked like Biggie's murder would never be officially closed, but now everything has changed. Keefe D was booked for killing Tupac, and there's no telling what kind of new evidence is gonna come up. The cops raided his house and brought out hard drives, photos, and other stuff to use in the case. And now we might finally get some real answers about what went down the night Biggie died. Keefe has already worked with the cops before and told him about being involved with Pac's murder so he could skate on some massive drug charges. But obviously there's more to the story going on behind the scenes, and they found something big against him. Kading already thought that Diddy was the one who ordered the hit on Tupac, and Suge clapped back by getting Biggie killed. And now that the case is finally going to trial, both of their murders could end up getting solved almost 30 years later.